So, Shannon, I know you guys did have that conversation, and you said he had plenty to say. So whose side are you on here?
Well, Skip, I think what happened is that this book brought up some memories, because if it serves me correctly, Skip, Mike thought at the time that the book came out that the source of a lot of information that Sam Smith had put in his book came from Horace Grant. Well, like a lot of other things, Skip, people had forgotten that. Maybe he said that, but people had forgotten. And then when this documentary comes out, it brings that all back up. I was like, hold on, wait a minute. I wasn't a snitch. I didn't. Yeah, Sam Smith and I were friends then. We're still friends to this day. But Michael played golf with Sam Smith. Michael invited Sam Smith up to his room. How do we know Michael didn't say some of these things? And so it brought up some painful memories from Horace Grant, because the one thing, Skip, you don't want to be labeled a snitch. You know, Tekashi 6ix9ine know full well what that snitching title gets you. A lot of people look down upon you for snitching, especially, Skip, if it's things within the team that no one would really knew about. And it's like Horace is giving out family secrets. And Horace is like, I'm pushing back against that. I think Horace isn't the only one, Skip, that doesn't like the way he was portrayed in this documentary. I guarantee you, if you put Scottie Pippen on a lie detector test, Scottie Pippen wouldn't like the way he's betrayed, because Horace also said something. Why was the hell that Scottie not going into the game in 1994? Why was that in this documentary? Michael Jordan was not even on the team. So why would you bring that up? You brought up the migraine. You brought up the bad back. You make Scottie looks bad. You talk about he's selfish. And one of the things that I gathered, and that when I talked to him, Skip, is that he's like, Sharpe, you know where I'm from. Ain't nobody taking no food off my plate. He said, you can ask anybody on the plane. Yes, he did say that. But I said, F you, and I stepped to him, and he didn't move. And so a lot of things that what he said to me, he relayed in this. And I told him, I said, I don't feel comfortable. Because I called him back again that night, Skip, and I said, what do you feel comfortable with me saying on air tomorrow? He said, hell, I called you. Say everything. And I told him just like this, Skip, and I called you and told you. I said, I don't feel comfortable saying everything that what he said. I would like for him to say that, because I don't want something get misinterpreted. Well, I said this and I didn't say that. No, I want it to all come out of your mouth. And I think yesterday he verbalized what he felt, the frustration. And he said it, Skip, if Michael had a problem with me, come to me like a man and let's settle it. Now, we can do that, or we can do it another way, however he chooses he wants to do it. But I can tell in him talking yesterday, and I can tell when he spoke to me last week, he was very frustrated with how he was being portrayed. And he was very disappointed. Like he said, Sharpe, he is a great, all-time great player. But y'all can miss me with that leadership. And one more thing, Skip, before I turn it over to you. Leadership is not always about trying to get someone else to do something. You know, there are times that Mike would ride a guy on the football team, and I would go to Mike and I would say, Mike, let me take it. I got it from here. He's like, 84, are you sure? I said, Mike, let me take it. See, that's also a part of leadership, Skip. Sometimes leadership thinks that you always have to be in the front position. But sometimes leadership comes in the form of, hey, you run interference for something else, and you handle that, and guys appreciate that also. That's all I'm saying. But what Horace was saying, Skip, he was very disappointed in how he was portrayed in this documentary.
Okay, so first up, Horace Grant is welcome on this show as soon as we can get back and get stabilized in studio, as you point out. So I don't want to speak, good. I don't want to speak behind his back or out of pocket over here where he doesn't have a chance to respond. I do want everybody to know he did get a chance to respond in the documentary. They did interview him. I'm not sure they asked him some of the questions on some of the more controversial topics that got brought up. But at least Michael Jordan allowed the producers to go find Horace Grant and interview him for the documentary. So you got to give him some credit for that. Now,
Skip, before I go any further, Skip, before you go any further.
All right.
Before you go any further, he said they asked him a lot. He said, but if it was anything negative about Michael, they edited that out. He said there are a lot of people that had speaking parts, but if they didn't speak favorable, it got cut out because Mike had final say.
Okay. And obviously, as you and I made clear from the start, this was a so-called quote unquote documentary. It's not a documentary. It's an autobiography. It's Michael Jordan signing off on everything that's in there. Let's not mistake it. Let's not try to doctor it up or pretty it up in any way, shape, or form. Michael had final say over every last little thing that went into that quote-unquote documentary. It's just his story in his view through his eyes. That's all it is.
Correct.
And I did think they did do it in many surprisingly objective ways because they dealt with the gambling issue. They dealt with other issues in Michael's life. They dealt with the quote-unquote bullying, as you call it. Michael allowed all of that practice footage that no one had ever seen before that had been archived that showed him, quote-unquote, bullying, or as I say, motivating other players by harshly getting on them, by ridicule. We saw Scott Burrell. And so the point is, Michael allowed a lot of objective things to get into the documentary. Now, back to Horace Grant. I've always liked him. I've always believed in how he played. He did play hard. He played the right way. He had a very good career. It lasted 17 years. That 1 year that Michael went to play baseball, Horace Grant made the All-Star team. I take none of that away. He has credibility in my eyes. But what seemed to really set Horace off was an interview that Sam Smith did. I think it was like the first week the doc hit in episodes 1 and 2. Sam Smith did an interview on San Francisco radio. This is just a random San Francisco radio interview in which he brought up the plane food story where they're flying back on the team plane and Michael told the flight attendant, don't give him a dinner. He played like, you know what, he doesn't get to eat tonight, which you could see is the way Michael was. Well, that's what stung Horace to the deepest to me, because I'm sure he goes on his social media and 6 or 8 people said, how could you allow that man to do that to you, to take food out of your mouth? I'm sure Horace got some food on the plane at some point, and if he didn't, he ate when he got home. But he took that so personally because of where he's from. He's South Carolina, right? I forgot to look this up because he went to Clemson.
He's
I believe he's from South Carolina. South Georgia.
No, he's from Georgia. So he went to Georgia.
Okay, I got it.
Middle Georgia.
So the point, yes, you got it. So you guys have sort of similar backgrounds. But the point is that he got his manhood challenge, maybe via Twitter or Instagram, that people are saying, Horace, you let that guy do that to you? So now he's saying that what got left out of that story was he stood up, that he stepped to, that he challenged Michael right then and there on the plane, and he says that Michael was just barking and that he wanted no part of Horace Grant. Horace Grant was 6'10".
16.
He was a thin, you know, he wasn't like sculpted, but he went 215 or 20, I think. I don't know, maybe he put on some more weight later in his career. I don't know. It would have been a good fight, and I'm not sure Michael would have backed down from it. But that's neither here nor there, because now it's gone over the edge into Horace is now saying, if he wants to do it right now, let's do it right now. Let's settle it, you know, man to man. If that's how we have to do it, let's do it this way. Horace also pointed out that they had remained friendly, that Michael had sent him signed shoes for his charities, on and on and on. The other thing I point out to you, Shannon, is Horace Grant still works for the NBA, representing the Chicago Bulls as a global ambassador. Again, before the pandemic, he was traveling the globe to represent the Bulls globally and talk about Michael Jordan. I've seen lots of quotes over the years from Horace Grant about how Michael is obviously the greatest player ever. He's the greatest I ever played with or against, because Horace left when he got his $50 million deal to go to Orlando and obviously played against Jordan in the playoffs. So the point is that I'm now worried for Horace Grant. Is he threatening this job? I don't know how much this job means, because Commissioner Silver is not going to love this from one of his global ambassadors challenging the man that most people think is the GOAT to a fight.
Ambassador.
If it's going to come to that, let's fight, right? So I'm not sure that's the greatest look right now. But Shannon, let's be real about this. What did we see from Michael Jordan in his Hall of Fame speech? We saw retribution. We saw vendettas. We saw grudges. We saw he just nucleared. You know, he nuked the whole field of people that who had crossed him, all the way back to who cut him in high school, the coach who cut him in high school. When he was a freshman in high school, he got cut from the team. Okay? That's who he is. That's who he always was. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that's the guy. Does he hold a grudge? Yes, he does. Was Scottie Pippen portrayed in The Last Dance in very negative terms in some instances? Yes, he was. Why was that, Shannon Sharpe? Because Scottie Pippen has said several times over the last couple of years he believes LeBron will ultimately be better than Michael Jordan. Well, if you say that publicly, you're done, man. You're off the list. Charles Barkley dared to say on TNT that Michael Jordan has not been a very good owner / GM of the Charlotte franchise. He questioned his ability to team build. And what happened? Michael said, that's it. The bridge was burned. And a guy who had been one of his closest friends, and Charles Barkley, is now not invited to the party anymore. He is off the list. So my point to you is, and to Horace, it's just who he always was. So, yes, did Michael go too far in The Last Dance? I keep wanting to call it a documentary. It's not a documentary. It's just The Last Dance. But did he go too far about Horace Grant? When Michael just condemned Horace, that was from Horace, the Jordan Rules book, all came from Horace. He was the snitch. Okay. Was he a contributor? Yes, he was. Did Sam Smith thank Horace Grant in the acknowledgments in the book for all the time that Horace had given to him? Yes, he did. Well, that right there is that's a flashing red light. That's a warning signal. Look out, because that would lead people to jump to the conclusion that Horace was a big source in that book. I mean, Horace was a big source in the Jordan Rules. So the point was, a lot of people jumped to that conclusion as soon as the book came out. But obviously, Sam Smith covered the team. He basically lived with the team. He got a lot of that from assistant coaches, from Phil Jackson, I believe from Jerry Reinsdorf. Remember, Sam Smith segued in his career. He has worked for the Bulls website. So now he's actually part of the team structure. So he's always been very close with Jerry Krause. Jerry Reinsdorf, because Jerry Krause became, Jerry Krause became a target in the Jordan Rules. So he hated it. He called Phil on the carpet about it. But there were lots of players who obviously contributed to the Jordan Rules. So in the end, look, Will Perdue had an interesting comment in The Last Dance. Will Perdue said that as soon as they broke through with that first championship, and Horace was there for 91, 92, and 93, that Horace was one of the players who resented Michael because he became so huge. Well, Horace Grant was the 10th overall pick in the draft. Horace Grant was the ACC Player of the Year. So he came with big credentials, and all of a sudden, as Will Perdue said in The Last Dance, he was pushed into the shadows by Michael Jordan. All of a sudden, he was kind of like just along for the ride. He was a nobody. Okay, that sticks in his craw. And I get it, because Jordan became a global icon like overnight. And obviously, once the sneakers caught hold, that was all of that. So the point
Skip,
was, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
But Skip, that's always the point. if you play on a team with a superstar, especially in basketball, you can be a really good player, but you become an afterthought. I mean, people don't realize how good Michael Cooper was. Skip, you remember Jamal Wilkes?
Yep.
That game that Magic went 42 and 15 and 7? Jamal Wilkes had 35 points. That's a footnote.
He did.
Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson, Tiny Archibald, those were very good players. But you a footnote to Larry Bird's story. Everybody's talking about Bird. He was MVP, 84, 85, 86. He's the last player to win 3 consecutive MVPs. So Horace shouldn't have been mad about that. Skip, when he got there, he understood what Mike was when he got there. He got drafted, if I'm not mistaken, Skip, in 87, because I remember seeing him, Skip. They came to the Civic Centers. Back then, Pizza Hut had an All-American team. He, Muggsy Bogues, I know those two remember those guys vividly because they played close to the Savannah area. And they came. And so I remember seeing Horace Grant. But Michael Jordan was a superstar by the time Horace even got to Chicago. So he shouldn't have been. Can you imagine, Skip? You know if a player's really good. So just think about what Patrick Mahomes is. Skip, he won the MVP, 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards. Now he's a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP. Can you imagine what he is throughout the league? Can you imagine what he is now in Kansas City? They have some good players. Tyreek Hill is a good player. Travis Kelce. But they're footnotes now to his story. That's just the way it rolls. And I agree with you, Skip. I think when it came out, and it is like, man, Jordan wouldn't even let Horace Grant eat. Horace, like, bull jive. Ask anybody on that plane. I said, F you, Mike, and I stepped towards him, and he didn't do anything. Because he wasn't about that. He would just bully guys that he thought he could get away with it with. That's what he said, Skip. And Horace verbalized that on the radio yesterday.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.